host, Sabrina Salvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. Doobie-doobie-doo.
All right. What's going on, everyone? I have a new microphone tonight, so please let me know in the chat if my volume is too loud. I really don't know until I watch this video. But I have a special guest with me tonight. His name is Terrence Cudney. He is running for Massachusetts State Senate as a third-party candidate. Welcome, Terrence.
Hi, Sabby. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Thanks so much for coming on. For those of you who are new, Sabs podcast is a part of the Fred Hampton Leftist Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Roundtable and Fridays for the Sabs show. And every other day, besides the weekend, you can catch me here. So I want to go ahead and get started talking about your campaign, Terrence. First and foremost, why did you decide to run for Senate in Massachusetts?
Sure. So yeah, that's the big question, right? So I'm originally from Colorado. I've been in Massachusetts for 5 years concurrently and 6 years total. And I moved up to Gloucester with my partner Sarah about 2 years ago, and just fell in love with the place. I've always kind of been a city boy, or at least I thought I was always going to be a city boy. And we actually moved up from Somerville area, sort of adjacent to Boston there. Basically I fell in love with the place. I fell in love with, being on the water and just saw sort of an opportunity. I'm in a very sort of independently minded district, is I guess how I'd frame it. It's elected a moderate Republican for the last 27 years, give or take, which is a huge amount of time. So what that tells me is two things, really. That first of all, in one of the bluest states in the country, you've got a district that's willing to at least be very intentional in how they pick their candidates and how they elect people. But it also suggests to me that they're open to seeing things differently and seeing things in a new light. And so I saw an opportunity there, and like I said, this guy's been in office about 27 years, so maybe they're ready for a change, perhaps.
Absolutely, Terrence. I have to tell you, they think you look like Max Blumenthal, and now I can't unsee it.
Oh no! I mean, he's a good one, so I'll take it.
So I have to ask, why did you decide to run as a third-party candidate?
Right. So I'm running as an independent, so I'm not affiliated with any party. Basically, I honestly, this is what feels truest to me. I've always been an independent voter. Growing up in Colorado, from the time I could vote, I was an independent. It felt right. And honestly, like I've experienced a huge amount of pressure to, align myself to a party, since deciding to run. Just about every conversation I have, people say, oh, well, you can't win as an independent candidate. And my answer to that is, this is what feels right to me. This is the way I feel truest to myself. And I don't want to run as anything but true to myself. And the fact is the corporate duopoly that we reside under is choking us and preventing intellectual diversity, preventing us from really electing a representative government for ourselves. And so I wanted to resemble, a move to increase that sort of representation. I guess that's it in a nutshell.
Awesome. When you think about politics in Massachusetts, because I think for me, like, I'm a transplant too, just like you. I've been here for 10 years now. And I always thought of Massachusetts as like this bold, progressive state before I moved here. And then I moved here and I realized that there are a lot of I guess you would call them like establishment Democrat, like people here. When Bernie was running against Biden in the primary, I was actually surprised that Joe Biden won Massachusetts. I really thought that Bernie Sanders was going to win. And I think that was kind of like a wake up call for me. I noticed that a lot of the communities, the suburban communities outside of Boston, went to Joe Biden. And I want to get your opinion about that. Like, what do you feel about, or how do you feel about politics in Massachusetts when people say that we're a blue state?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's first of all, there's that sort of central conceit of saying, well, all states are either blue states or red states, and that's a bit misses the forest for the trees, in my opinion, because like I say, there's a lot more intellectual diversity to the country than I think we're led to believe by our political system, and yeah, I'll admit I was a little surprised that it wasn't closer for Bernie in Massachusetts. But I think we definitely have a sort of strong never Trumper vibe in Massachusetts, generally speaking. And that's maybe a little less true on the North Shore where I live. But overall, I think the state is very much, was ready to get him out by any means necessary, and they decided that this was the way to do that. And here we are.
Yeah, I hear you. So Massachusetts is one of the wealthiest states in the nation, but I've noticed that we have pretty large wealth disparities here, especially once you go into the cities. You go into Worcester, you go into Boston, Cambridge, Somerville. I lived in Somerville too, actually. So it's interesting how many people I'm running into on this like platform that lived in Somerville, because like This Is Revolution podcast was here, or not maybe lived, but Jason from This Is Revolution said he actually performs with his band in Somerville. So it was interesting to hear someone who doesn't even live in Massachusetts, they know about Somerville. But when we think about like the wealth disparities in Massachusetts, what would you say are some of the biggest problems or some of the biggest causes for that?
Yeah, so my district is a little bit unique in the sense that it's actually a pretty rural district overall. So I live in Gloucester, which is the biggest city in the district, and it's about 30,000 people, give or take. So that's pretty darn small. So when you compare that to a Worcester, definitely a Boston, you're talking a much smaller place. So when it comes to the wealth disparity question, I think we represent this is a district, the one that I'm running in. This is a district that represents that problem. It's very sort of blue collar in the sense that we have a sort of large agricultural sort of tradition here, as well as a large sort of fishing tradition, especially where I'm at. So when you get closer to the coast, you're dealing more with fisheries, and when you get further away, you're dealing with more farms and that sort of thing. So I think the for sure, basically it's divided. There's the people that are commuting into Boston to their big white collar jobs, and there are the people that actually live out here and work in a restaurant. I was a restaurant worker until a couple months ago when I announced. And then there's the more sort of the other kinds of blue collar jobs that you tend to find in a more rural area like mine.
Yeah, I'm curious. I have noticed that rent continues to increase. I think just in Eastern Massachusetts in general, not just Boston, because it's kind of spread because people have been pushed further out. I noticed like housing prices have continued to increase, even though we had like a pandemic. It's like it's just so hard here to even find like a single family home. We don't have a lot of single family like houses here. When you think about the housing situation in Massachusetts, what do you feel could be done when we think about like the cost of living here and just how much rent costs in Massachusetts, in Eastern Massachusetts?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest struggle, the thing that I've been focusing on is affordable housing especially for low income, working class folks. And we have, unfortunately, a decent sized, homeless population here in my district. So the thing that I've been working on, and I've yet to release this part of my platform, but is on dealing with vacant homes and basically giving an opportunity for homeless folks, for working class folks, to at least have a place to stay temporarily while they sort of try and get on their feet. And so I'm working on what are the logistics of that? How do we make that work from a policy standpoint? But yeah, I mean it's a toughie, and because we have that sort of that disparity, as I was talking about, between sort of the folks that commute to Boston that can afford that commute, number one, but can also afford to buy the big houses, the big waterfront properties out here. We have to figure out how do we make room for that disparity. So I'm working on that. It's a tough nut to crack for sure.
I love hearing about affordable housing. I know one of the things, like when Marty Walsh was still mayor, that was like his big thing, and unfortunately that didn't happen. just being realistic, I continue to see more and more condos being built, and the opposite of that was supposed to happen. And I have to ask, when it comes to rent control, this was something that Marty Walsh said we can't go back to doing that. At one point in time, for those who don't know, there was actually rent control in Boston, and Marty Walsh said we can't go back to rent control. Didn't really explain why. Do you think that rent control is something that we should be pushing more?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the struggle is that people just aren't really very familiar with what rent control means. They have a very sort of caricature picture in their mind of what rent control means. Oh, you're just going to keep it at this level and it's never going to go up. That's not actually what rent control is. What rent control is, for those people who don't know, is basically we're saying you can't raise the rent a crazy amount whenever you feel like it. You need to have a more sort of established mechanism for when you're allowed to raise the rent, how much you're allowed to raise the rent. Is it depending on the cost of living of your tenants? There's all these factors that go into it. And so I'm absolutely open to that. For one of the things that I've realized as I've been running is a lot of my work is going to have to be educating my voters. I think our voters here are very smart. Like I say, they're very independently minded. So they're willing to sort of think through the issues. But we need to talk about, what those terms are that they're sort of, ready to kind of write off. Like I think rent control in some cases is a term that a certain percentage of the population, they hear that and they're like, oh no, I couldn't possibly abide by rent control. But when you actually describe to them what it is, suddenly it becomes a more feasible discussion and one that they're more open to.
What are some of the needs that you would say you see in your district?
Yeah, so there's a lot, I suppose. I think the biggest ones that I see do relate to wealth disparity. I think we have a great opportunity to have a discussion about how to address that. And for me, for my platform, I'm very much interested in, I guess, like, how to describe it. I want to be precise here. So obviously, I think lowering taxes on the lower, middle, and working class, as well as raising taxes on the wealthy and corporations, is huge for addressing wealth disparity. But I also think we need to look into implementing a state marginal income tax, which is a way to kind of get at that. So that's a huge issue as I see it, because of this wealth disparity in my district, to basically sort of start to right the ship a little bit. So that's issue one. Issue two, obviously we a large percentage of the district lives on the coast. So I think addressing climate change and creating climate resiliency is going to be a huge issue for my district. We have a sewage plant in our city that's basically always on the verge of being underwater, of leaking just the worst kinds of things you can think of leaking into, the groundwater and that sort of thing in our area. So we have to talk about climate resiliency. We have to be, I think, in terms of addressing, the economic injustice in our district, I think we have to look into investing in, green jobs and basically making Massachusetts, as I see, a leader in renewable energy. We're a participant in the kind of renewable energy economy, but we can really be a leader in that space and do that in a way that helps to raise our economy, helps to raise all boats in the metaphorical sense, if not the physical sense, and make that more of an opportunity for people to get more well-paying jobs, that sort of thing. So I think that's huge. I can go on, but those are a couple.
Awesome. How do you feel about healthcare in Massachusetts? So we had a March for Medicare for All in Boston back in July. Trying to the push for this, like maybe we have to do it through the state level because it doesn't seem like it's going to happen on the federal level, regardless of who is in office. But one of the things that we've run into is we have a bill in the state house for Medicare for all, but there's one person who is preventing that bill from being brought to the floor for a vote. So it's like we have these measures, but it's like it's that taking that next step and getting these things like voted on. Like we're kind of at like a stopping point. Like we just hit a brick wall. It looks like New York is probably going to be the first state to get this passed. When you think about the healthcare system, we live in a state where we have some of the best doctors, some of the best hospitals, and yet we have a lot of people here that are still uninsured and underinsured. So I wanted to get your take on Medicare for all.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a huge Medicare for all advocate, for sure, and the mass care advocate. For those people who don't know, that's the state-based initiative in Massachusetts to get us to universal health care. Yeah, I think this is hugely important, and this is something that we got to do. I believe Massachusetts remains kind of the most highly insured state, but we need to start to disaggregate, the difference between health insurance and healthcare in this country. We have this weird idea that, oh, well, if you're insured, then that means you're good to go. But in Massachusetts, it's somewhere between 1 in 10 and 1 in 5 Bay Staters who are underinsured, which basically means they might have insurance, but the second that medical bill comes through, they might not be able to afford it. They might have to, go into huge amounts of medical debt to even keep their head financially above water. And so when we talk about Massachusetts being, way at the forefront, great doctors, great hospitals, that part is true. We do have great hospitals and great doctors in Massachusetts, but we do have a system where, doesn't matter, basically, if you're insured, that's no guarantee that you're going to be okay as far as your healthcare is concerned. So I'm a huge advocate for that. I'm actually going to be going down to New York City next week to participate in the Occupy Pfizer die-in and protest with the March for Medicare for All folks. So I'm really looking forward to that next week. I think that's next week.
Yeah. I wish I could be there. I have to work, but Sharif was on talking about that. That's going to be awesome. A really good event. When you think about education, like education system here, similar thing where we have some of the best schools in the country here in Massachusetts, but even in the education system, we still have disparities. Like if you look up the top schools in Massachusetts, they're usually in the wealthy towns. They're in like Newton, Weston, and some of the charter schools are now making the top of that list. So it's like if you don't get into the charter school or live in one of those wealthy towns, you're not at the schools that have the most funding. How would you describe the education system in your district?
Yeah, I mean it's fairly similar. I mean we have some good state colleges, some good local colleges. I think generally overall we have a fairly strong education system in Massachusetts overall. But we need to start talking more about, so for instance, we're having an issue of people finishing high school in this state. That level of attainment is dropping in Massachusetts for sure. And that's a huge something that we need to be looking at for sure. And I think we need to be more creative about in our approach to education overall. I'm thinking through this still. This is an ongoing conversation in my head, I suppose, and just something I'm thinking about a lot is how do we make education more equitable? How do we meet people where they are financially in terms of their ability to afford higher education? And I think we need sort of an all of the above approach is where my head is at in terms of talking about online education, in terms of technical education. We have a degree to which we have a certain elitism, I would say, to academia in Massachusetts in particular. And we need to start dismantling that and allowing we need to start meeting people where they're at, I think is the big thing. And, making sure that people have a good internet connection. So, if they need to be at home for education, you can talk about, other types of disparities around, sickness and disability, inability to attain education for those reasons. And I think a lot of that has been exposed by the pandemic too, with the degree to which people can, make it to school depending on their wealth, their financial status. Can they transfer to a charter school that's going to be open that can afford to do all the sort of renovations and things that it takes to be able to be open in the middle of the pandemic. But I think we really need to start thinking more innovatively. I think we're generally, further ahead than many states in that way. But I think that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be striving for better, and especially for, resolving those disparities in education. And I think it's going to take a lot of creative thinking for sure.
Agreed. The pandemic, I think, really opened my eyes because I remember, having students that would constantly lose internet connection. And and that had to be like frustrating for them. So it was definitely like eye-opening to me that like when we switched to online, not everybody could do this because of like just lack of internet connection. And also some people have like brothers and sisters home with them at the same time. And the parents are working from home and they may not have a separate room that they could go to do like their online learning. So it really did like open my eyes to a lot of things when it comes to education. I have a question about the criminal justice system, because this is interesting because everyone like shouts out Massachusetts because they're like, you guys legalize like marijuana, like you guys have like, those shops and everything. But I also mentioned to people but yes, we still have people in prison for marijuana and have not been released. When you think about the criminal justice system here, what do you feel needs to change?
Yeah, especially so. I guess one of the sort of elephants in the room living in Massachusetts is that I guess there isn't really an easy way to say this, so I'll just come out and say it. We're a pretty white state, and our district in particular here in Essex County is a pretty white district. So I think we tend to, unfortunately, as a district, we tend to push some of these issues of mass incarceration, and particularly of people of color, to the side a little bit. We tend to sort of think that it's not an issue because the fact is we don't see that amount of over policing as easily in this state because, especially when you get outside of Boston, yep. you're in a place where you're just not going to see those problems of policing, see those problems of mass incarceration as easily. And I think that actually presents an opportunity in the same way that I think, you talk about being the most well-insured, best hospitals kind of state and, great schools, generally speaking. What that does is it means that we have an opening to be at the forefront of making some changes. And so I think, obvious solutions are, expunging convictions for non-violent drug offenses and that sort of thing. One of the pillars of my platform is I think that we absolutely need to consider offering free drug addiction recovery programs. Whenever you look into it, they make it look like, oh, that's something that's provided for by the government, but no, they're actually gonna, try and charge you kind of on the back end for those drug recovery programs and things like that. So when it comes to substance use, and actually, I take I'm really excited. And maybe I shouldn't say, I don't want to get too over my skis here. I'm happy to see that we elected Michelle Wu in Boston for mayor, because I think she has a really good sort of holistic approach to to substance abuse, to addressing housing inequities in sort of a holistic way, and recognizing that this is really about the sort of disparity problem that we've already been talking about. And so I see her as a solid model, and obviously I'll be looking to see with interest to see how she delivers. And I'm trying to reach out and talk about how we can look at sort of greater Boston, the sort of Boston metro area, which includes the North Shore, thinking about that problem holistically. And so when it comes to the over incarceration, often for drug related offenses, I think we really need to turn the tide of that, and again, be ahead of the curve, because it's easy to kind of put those things in the dark, but it also means that we have an opportunity to address it and bring it out into the light, even though it's perhaps not as visible as it might be in other states.
Are there any policies that you would like to change in Massachusetts, or you would like to see improved?
Oh, wow. Well, healthcare is obviously a big one, right? I think we absolutely need to get to universal healthcare. And I think you're right that New York State is kind of at the forefront. And I'm actually working with a number of activists in healthcare from around the country to build a democratic coalition of state initiatives, basically working with New York Health Act, working with whole Washington and Washington State, working with CalCare, and trying to build sort of that solidarity that helps us build some momentum to get us there faster. So if we, and the belief is, this is sort of, we talk about this as the fight on all fronts approach, that we should all be focusing on, if we can just get one state over the line, that builds momentum to get other states on board. And so, healthcare is definitely one of the big policies I think we absolutely need to change. Another huge one for me is I talk about economic democracy a lot in my platform. And this is a term that is another sort of education piece for my constituents. A lot of people don't really know what economic democracy means. It sounds kind of, interesting and sort of like it makes intuitive sense. But people don't actually see that, implemented really anywhere in our system so far, which is just that we need more democracy in the way our economy functions. And so I think it's the way I view it is primarily in terms of the workplace. I think we need to incentivize more democracy in the workplace. And so I think for one, we need more worker representation on corporate boards. And we can incentivize that. We can incentivize companies to do that through tax incentives. Same with reorganization into worker cooperatives. I think allowing more people to reorient their businesses as cooperatives and incentivizing that will be a huge boon for addressing all these things that we've already been talking about in terms of raising the tide for people. Another area where I see an opportunity for tax incentives is just around greater employee stock ownership, allowing employees to have more stock, more equity in the companies that they're involved in, instead of just board members and that sort of thing. So that's sort of just a glance at kind of the economic democracy piece of my platform, and I could go on and on, but I'll leave it there for the moment at least.
Awesome. I want to share my screen really quick because I want to show everybody the direct action event that Terrence is going to be involved in. Sharif is going to be there as well. You guys are familiar with him. I think everybody that watches my show knows Sharif by now. But yeah, this is happening. It's the Pfizer die-in, Occupy Pfizer with us and bring the fight for Medicare for all to them. This is happening Monday, November 15th, 8:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. at 235 East 42nd Street in New York City. So if you are in the area, I know a lot of you guys are like in that New York area, definitely check that out if you can. Highly think that this needs to happen.
Absolutely. And it looks like I'm going to have an opportunity to speak at the protest, which I'm super excited about. But yeah, I think so. Sort of to speak more broadly about the reason for, kind of building this regional solidarity with New York. And that's one of the reasons why I saw fit to kind of make my way down there is there's a lot of opportunity that I see to think regionally about big problems like universal healthcare and build that solidarity with folks that are working on the same issues that we are, just a state or two over. And I see a similar kind of opportunity for, obviously healthcare is huge, but I also see an opportunity for climate change and addressing that where, certain parts of the country, perhaps the middle of the country is the predominant kind of offender and sort of keeping us from broader change on that issue. But on the coast, at least, we have some broad consensus on tackling issues like climate change more forcefully and getting us more in the direction that we need to go, obviously, for that issue. And so I just bring that up in the context of the Occupy Pfizer event, because I think it's really important to realize that we're either in sort of our silos as states, or we're often, just thinking about everything as national issues. And I think that there's an opportunity to build more regional solidarity, and that in a way that might help us get to addressing some of those issues where we've stagnated nationally or at the state level, and help us get there faster.
Awesome. Terrence, thanks so much for coming on. Before you go, where can people find you and how can they support your campaign?
Sure. So I think someone just brought it up on the chat, my website there. It's Cudney4, that's the one, Cudney4ma.com. I'm also on Twitter, Cudney4ma, same deal there. Those are probably two best places. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook. I've been told I should get a TikTok. I haven't quite figured that one out yet. I'm definitely on the older side of the millennial generation, so some of that is a little bit tricky for me, but I'm told I should make an effort. So maybe I'll be making a TikTok sooner as opposed to later. But yeah, those are kind of the primary places to find me. We're starting to get into the sort of nitty gritty of starting to try and raise some money to get my campaign in front of more people. So please feel free to visit us at the website there and see how you can get involved.
Awesome. Yes, guys, I know I'm still live right now, but after this stream, definitely share this so we can get this to as many people as possible. Terrence, thanks so much for coming on. I'm sorry, I can't unsee the Max Blumenthal now. I can't unsee it. Like, I look at you and I'm like, it's Max.
That's hilarious. It hadn't occurred to me before, but when you said it, I was like, oh wait, yeah, that is a thing. That's that's something I'm gonna need to think about. Yeah, maybe we need to do a Max Blumenthal, Terrence Cudney side-by-side conversation just for the fun of it.
Yeah, Max came on here too. That would be a trip. Oh man. Thanks so much, Terrence.
Two white boys with the ginger beards talking it out.
All right, Terrence, thanks so much for coming on. Good luck.
All right. Thanks a lot, Sabby. Appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Bye. All right, guys. Let me go ahead and fix that. All right, guys, what is going on? Yeah, so for those of you that came in later on the stream, Terrence is running as an independent for Massachusetts State Senate. So yeah, and someone mentioned in the chat that he looked like Max Blumenthal, and like now I can't unsee it. Like I really can't. So yeah, we are going to get into tonight's news. So I told you guys I would be bringing on more third-party candidates. So I will continue to do that. Let me go ahead and pull up my thumbnail, show you what we're going to talk about tonight. Share my screen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get into it tonight. We're going to talk about the squad theatrics on infrastructure bill. Oh, can't wait to talk about that. I got a lot to say. Biden sinks. What is going on with Biden's current approval rating? Yes, he is continuing to go down. And we just talked about the third party spotlight that was with Terrence Cudney. So let's get into the squad theatrics. Oh, excuse me. Really quick, guys. How is my volume? Because I have a new mic now. So I just want to make sure I'm not too loud and I'm not too low. If you can give me a heads up in the chat, that would be great. I hope I sound okay. I want to give a shout out to all of my Patreons as well, because you guys helped me get this microphone, because like for real, this stuff is not cheap. I'm just being honest. This equipment is not cheap. It's a little low. Oh, I think that's just Atrice. How is it now? You're just right on sound. Okay. Maybe it's just you, Atrice. Everybody else says it's cool. All right. Eric Thomas said, I give the sound an A. Oh, he's got jokes. He's got jokes. All right. Let's get into the squad theatrics, because some people thought that the squad's performance with this infrastructure bill was a big win. They thought it was brave. They thought it was bold. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and show you the article. For those of you who don't know what happened, now this happened late Friday night. That's why I didn't get a chance to talk about it on Friday's stream. And I don't think you guys wanted me to stream at like midnight. But
on this vote, the yeas are 228 and the nays are...
Oh, I wish you would be quiet. God. Just go away. Stop. Okay. All right, here we go. The House on Friday voted 228 to 206 to pass a 1.2 trillion infrastructure bill after hours of delays and debating among Democrats, sending the bipartisan measure to President Joe Biden's desk for his signature. But while Democrat leaders managed to unify House progressives and moderates to hold a vote on the Senate-passed bill, not all members of the party ultimately supported it. Let's get to that. Here are the 6 House Democrats who broke from the party to vote against the bill: Jamal Bowman, Cori Bush, AOC, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, Rashida Tlaib. So this bill actually also got Republican support. Now, I want to say something really quick about the squad. Now, some people are saying they held the line. Some people are saying that they were very bold here, brave. People are calling them heroes. Sabby's not, and I'm going to tell you why in just a second. 13 Republicans supported this as well. So let me go down. Here's a list of them here. I don't know any of these people. I'm just going to be honest with you. Don Bacon, Brian Fitzpatrick, Andrew Gabarino, Anthony Gonzalez, John Katzko, Adam Kissinger, Nicole Maliotakis, I think that's right, David McKinley, Tom Reed, Chris Smith, Fred Upton, Jeff Van Drew, and Don Young. Now, I'm going to show you this video for just a second. They were cheering about this. Let me go ahead and mute my mic. Oh, cool. With this new mic, I could just press the button to mute it. Here we go.
Nays are 206. The motion is adopted.
Can you guys hear me now? Can you hear me now? Hello? I'm still muted. Check, check. Check, check, check. You can hear me now, right? Let me test it. Check. You can hear me now, right? You can hear me now, right? Okay. All right, cool. Sorry about that. Told you, new microphone. Anyway, I do not think the squad choosing to vote no on this bill is actually courageous, brave, any of that. I do not believe that. And I'm going to tell you why. If you already know that 13 Republicans are going to vote for this bill, then you also know that Ro Khanna and Pramila Jayapal are also going to vote for this bill. Ro Khanna and Pramila Jayapal were not secret about that. They made that very clear that they plan to vote for it. They went on talk shows and said they were going to vote for it. So you know you got those two votes, right? Now you know you got 13 votes from the Republicans. So at that point, if you're a member of the squad, if you vote no, it didn't really matter because you knew the bill was going to pass anyway. I'm sorry, but I just call it like I see it. They already had permission from Pelosi to vote that way. You guys really think they just went off on their own and said, we're going to be rebels? No, they already had the okay. So for me, it's just theater. And once again, we're the audience. That is a way for the squad to say, look, guys, we did something progressive. Look, guys, we went against establishment Democrats. And if you don't read into it and do your research, it's easy to sit back and believe that. It's easy to believe what CNN said, easy to believe what MSNBC said. Look at those progressives holding strong. AOC is already tweeting about it. But I know math. I'm not the best at math, but I know math. So just do the math. That's the thing, you guys. People they knew it was going to pass. So if you're going into this and you already know it's going to pass, hey, here's my chance to look like a rebel. Here's my chance to look like a real leftist. Now's my chance to vote no. I want to show you something that I posted about this because people were really falling for the okie doke. Sabby, not so much. I had to call it out. Like I said, this came through late Friday night, and I really wanted to just jump on stream and start talking about it then. But I was like, no. So I'm going to share my screen because I want to show you something that Jink tweeted. Of course, you know he had to. Once again, trying to make something seem like something that it was not. So Jink said, core group of 6 Justice Democrats voted no. That is a brave act of rebellion. Here we go. This begins to restore hope that there are some who did not give into Democratic leadership bullying. Thank you for fighting for us. And he tags all of them there. I responded to this. Actually, I quote tweeted this. And this is what I said. Because they didn't have the numbers to actually make a difference. When they do have the numbers, they don't hold the line. Am I wrong? Am I wrong? Because they didn't do it with the Iron Dome. They didn't do it with Fourth the Vote. They didn't do it with the Fight for 15. They didn't do it with the Capitol Police Bill. They had chances there to actually make a difference with their vote, and they chose not to. This one time, when they knew that they didn't really have a chance to make a difference, now all of a sudden, they want to be bold and say, let's go ahead and vote no. Let's shoot it down. Let's vote against the establishment. I see through the BS. I see through it. I'm sorry. So that's one thing. The second thing, Ro Khanna and Pramila Jayapal. For the love of God, please stop calling them progressive. They cave, they fold. You cannot count on them to make progress. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And I know people have interviewed Ro Khanna recently. I know Brianna Joy Gray interviewed him. She really pushed him, which I thought was good. But these people are not your friend. They are not in there to help us. I told you this before. Go on Open Secrets and look up Ro Khanna's donors. So I think we need to stop calling Ro Khanna and Pramila Jayapal progressive. There, I said it. Now I want to show you something else. Because it gets better, ladies and gentlemen. It gets better. Because Pramila Jayapal decided to brag. Oh boy, this woman. I want you to hear what she has to say, because this just, I can't. Once again, this is another example of Democrats bragging about things that you really should not brag about. Check this out. Let me mute my mic.
We have been working to pass the president's Build Back Better agenda. This is not some far left agenda. This is the president's agenda that he came down to Capitol Hill. We have been working to pass the president's Build Back Better agenda. This is not some far left agenda. This is the president's agenda that he came down to Capitol Hill and unveiled to us in February. And we're so proud of his.
I'm sorry, guys, but problem here, she just said this is not some far left agenda. That's not a bragging point. That's not a bragging point. See, again, you have progressive, or excuse me, I'm not going to call them progressive anymore. You have people who say they are progressive who are trying to appeal to moderates and centrists. This is not some far left guys, this is not something you need to brag about. Going on.
Leadership. He's been doing a phenomenal job with really bad hand. And there are progressive candidates that have won in many cities across the country, including in Boston and Cincinnati. We're so proud of those firsts. But I think that this is really important to understand. We have been working to pass the president's agenda. And the Democratic Party as a whole, we have differences. It's true. And people say we've been negotiating for a long time. But let me be clear, Anderson, the real negotiation on Build Back Better really only started about 4 weeks ago. It's barely been anything. But it happens to fall in this time where, you know, we did have elections. And of course, we have the natural backlash of a cycle. We have been working.
How dare she put my city in her mouth? How dare she put Boston in? No, leave Boston out of this. This is not about Boston. This is about these terrible bills, which one of them you just voted yes on. That's what this is about. She's bragging. This is not some far left agenda. That's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. We want something better. We want something bolder. But keep Boston out of this, man. Don't come from, no, we ain't got nothing to do with this. Don't try to add us to this equation. Where Pilgrim is correct, keep Boston out of it, LOL. Yes, please do. Don't bring us into this. We did not ask for this conversation. Now I want to show you. This is Jink again. Now he is still bragging about this. Now I know better. I know that Jink knows what's up, but he's lying to his viewers, and that's why it's problematic, and I don't like it. He said, when Pelosi makes progressives vote no, instead of making conservative Democrats vote no by picking which bill they vote on and in which order, she reveals her hand. That means she was always going to screw over the progressives and make them seem like the bad guys, not your friend. So you see what's happening here, guys? Now, all of a sudden, the rotating villain is Nancy Pelosi. Now he's not blaming Sinema and Manchin anymore. Now he's blaming Pelosi. He's even going as far as to say that she screwed over progressives, but here it goes, makes progressives vote no. They're adults. They have a mind of their own. They can vote the way that they want to. So it just, again, you are not putting responsibility on the squad. You are putting responsibility on someone else. And I'm so tired of these scapegoats. We all know Nancy Pelosi is bad. We all know Nancy Pelosi has issues. We know that she is problematic. But the fact that you're not calling out the squad when they are complicit in this behavior, you are putting it on someone else. Every time they mess up, it is somebody else's fault. And I'm sick of it. I'm sorry. I'm just tired of it. Rotating villain. There we go again. There we go again. Now, the other problem with this situation, when people say, yay, they held the line, and I said, no, they did not. I just gave you two examples, or two, not really examples, two parts of that. I'm going to give you the third part. We need to remember that this infrastructure bill and this Build Back Better Act were supposed to go together. They are not supposed to be split up. That's why I keep telling you this is not a win. Now, because they did not vote on them together, now you have the Build Back Better Act out in the clouds somewhere, and at some point, I guess they're supposed to vote on that, if that even happens. So this is not a win. They were supposed to go together, and they're supposed to go together for a reason. You still have the climate portion that's a part of this. Now, both bills still suck, but I just want to point that out. Remember what they said. These bills are supposed to go together. Shout out to Anti-Gravity for the super chat. Jink virtue signaling on Twitter again. Typical. I was about to say twipical. Typical. Yes, anti-gravity. Yes, he is. So you guys see what I'm saying? So I just gave you 3 reasons. Number 1, the squad only voted no because they knew they already had the votes for it to pass. Theatrics, performative, Sabby doesn't buy it. Number 2, Pramila Jayapal and Ro Khanna had already informed the public that they were going to vote yes on it. And number 3, these bills were supposed to go together. This is not a win. I've said that several times. Now I'm going to show you why this infrastructure bill is problematic. We're about to go to school, ladies and gentlemen. We're about to go to class. Let me share my screen. Let's get in it. Let's get in it. Because the American Society of Civil Engineers, they actually have a report card on America's infrastructure. And I want to show you this. The American Society of Civil Engineers has decided that America's infrastructure scores a C-. Didn't even make it to a B-, y'all. A C-. Okay? Let's go down. I want to show you more. So what they do on this site, they have different categories. And if you hover over each category, you can see the grade. And I don't know if you guys can see that or not. Hopefully so. Let me check yeah, you can see it. So for aviation, they gave us a D+. Bridges, a C. Broadband, I don't know if that's an F or if they didn't score that one yet. Dams, they gave us a D. Drinking water, we got a C-. That's scary. That's really scary, actually. Energy, a C-. Hazardous waste, D+. Inland waterways, D+. Levees, D. Public parks, D+. Ports, B minus. Rail, B. I'm actually surprised by that one. Roads, D. Schools, D plus. Solid waste, C plus. Stormwater, D. Transit, D minus. Wastewater, D plus. This is terrible. Do you guys see this? This is terrible. Now, again, this is coming from the American Society of Civil Engineers. So they have a whole report card here about the United States infrastructure, and everybody should check this out. I'm actually going to put this link in the chat because when you get some free time, there's a lot of information on this website. I highly recommend that you look into this and you check this out. Now I want to show you something else that they pulled up. I mean, this is just bad. I'm going to show you the effects on the country and the people if we do not improve the issues that they are telling us to improve. So I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. Again, if you're just joining, this is from the American Society of Civil Engineers. Here is the investment gap from 2020 going to 2029. Look at this. ACCE discovered in its 2021 study failure to act economic impacts of status quo investments across infrastructure systems. Failing to close this infrastructure investment gap brings serious economic consequences. Here we go. By 2039, continued underinvestment. I'm actually going to make this a little bit larger for you guys. I think that looks a little bit better. Yes. By 2039, continued underinvestment in our infrastructure at current rates will cost 10 trillion GDP, more than 3 million jobs in 2039, 2.24 trillion in exports over the next 20 years. When we fail to invest in our infrastructure, we pay the price. Poor roads and airports means travel times increase. An aging electric grid and inadequate water distribution make utilities unreliable. Problems like these translate into higher costs for businesses to manufacture and distribute goods and provide services. These higher costs, in turn, get passed along to workers and families. Now, everybody, did you just hear that part? In turn, this gets passed along to workers and families. Going down. By 2039, America's overdue infrastructure bill will cost the average American household $3,300 a year or $63 a week. Now, it goes on to say that America is trying to close the infrastructure gap. But I'm going to show you the amount that they recommended. We are still just paying about half of our infrastructure bill, and the total investment gap has gone from 2.1 trillion over 10 years to 2.59 trillion over 10 years. So I believe I just told you earlier in the segment, with that infrastructure bill, I believe it was 1.2 trillion. According to the American Society of Civil Engineers, we should be investing 2.59 trillion over 10 years. Coming out. This is why I tell you, when I told you that that infrastructure bill was trash, when I told you that that Build Back Better Act was trash, believe me, this is not enough. Sometimes we hear the word trillion, you know, it's a lot, sounds like a lot. But when you go off of that report, what I just showed you, this is not enough. It's not even half. And we have people on CNN saying that this is a big win for Joe Biden. It's a win for Joe Biden, but it's not a win for the American people. Joe Biden's not even going to be alive when we're affected by this. Let's be real here, you guys. This is going to screw over millennials. This is going to screw over Gen Z. The younger people are going to be the ones that have to deal with these consequences that Joe Biden's bill does not put a dent in. It's not even half. Not even half. Henry said that's just for maintenance. Eric Thomas said spending on infrastructure not good for quarterly profit on Wall Street. Look, there you go. There you go. Cam said, and they're not even factoring in the things we need to do for climate change. We are so dead. This is not enough. I don't know why people are applauding this. I don't know why Dems think they've done something big, because once again, I told you guys, when Democrats give us something, they give us crumbs. Going back all the way back to the stimulus check, they couldn't even give us the full 2,000. Crumbs. Even 2,000 wasn't enough. And I said back then, they should have been recurring payments. People would have been able to pay their bills, pay their rent. People would have been able to put money into the economy. You can't just give someone a $1,600 check. Oh, wait a minute. A $1,400 check and say, have at it. After you've lost your job, after businesses around you have closed, and you're dealing with this pandemic. Oh, and you may not have healthcare either. So there you go. There you go. So this is not something that we should be cheering on. It's scraps, it's crumbs, and we deserve a full meal. Now they're saying that for Joe Biden, this is a win. I told you it is not. Ryan Knight had something to say about this. And I want to show this to you as well. If you don't follow Ryan Knight on Twitter, you should. He really calls these things out. Ryan said, the Democrats snuck in a $400 billion tax cut for the rich into their Build Back Better Act. Here we go. And their voters are so propagandized that they are cheering on this blatant betrayal of the working class. This is why I like people like Ryan. Because Ryan is not afraid to call this out. Ryan is here to let you know, about that Build Back Better Act. They forgot to mention the part about the tax cut for the rich. Just want to add that in there. Shout out to Delthea Simmons, who's a Sabby member. We needed at least 10 trillion. The Dems asked for 6 trillion. Bernie negotiated 3.5 trillion. Current bill is 1.2 trillion. Manchin initially wanted 0.8 trillion. How is this a win? Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks so much for the super chat, Delthea Simmons. What I tell you guys, man. See, this is why it's good to listen to independent media. They're not telling you this stuff. I look at some of these bills, and yes, like the writing is like small. The text is really small, and yes, it's really lengthy. Has a lot of lawyer language in it, but I was on the debate team in high school, so some of these things I kind of understand. But if you are not type of person that's going to sit through and read all that, it's really easy to sit back and just listen to what mainstream media is telling you is in these bills without actually looking at these bills. And I brought this same thing up before with the George Floyd Policing Act, that the George Floyd Policing Act actually was giving more money to police. Now, they weren't going to tell you that. Of course not. That's why you have me. I'll let you know. Sabby's a little nerdy. I can read these things and actually be like, what? So yeah, that's why you have people like me here, guys. Eric Thomas said, love how Ryan Knight takes it to the Dem frauds. Yes. And Ryan gets heavily attacked on Twitter. Heavily attacked. But yeah, there you go. Now, again, I just told you, they're saying that this is a win for Joe Biden. But apparently, Joe Biden is not experiencing a win. And I'm about to show you why. So this came up. Let me go ahead and make this a little bit bigger for you guys before I share my screen. Because it was an interesting weekend for news. And I'm about to show you why this is not A win for Joe Biden? I'm sorry, I'm gonna try not to laugh. Here we go. Gloomy landscape for Democrats in the midterms as Biden's approval drops to 38% in USA Today Suffolk poll. So we're going into our final story for tonight. Yes, Joe Biden is continuing to drop in the polls. Let me close this crazy video. All right, here we go. A year before the 2022 midterm elections, Republicans hold a clear lead on congressional ballot as Joe Biden approval rating sinks to a new low of 38%, ladies and gentlemen. USA Today Suffolk University poll taken Wednesday through Friday found that Biden's support cratered among the independent voters who delivered his margin of victory over President Donald Trump 1 year ago. Now, I've told you this, guys, before when he first started to decrease this year, that he was losing support amongst independents. Without that support, he would have not won Arizona. So this is important. It gets worse. Biden and his party are poised for a rebound, advocates argue, after the House passed a $1.2 trillion hard infrastructure bill late Friday. I just told you guys, this is not a hard bill. This is not a good bill. They're exaggerating. Next, we're going down here. That said, the survey illuminates the size of the hole Democrats need to dig out of as they look toward the elections in 1 year. November 8th, 2022, that will determine control of Congress and shape the second 2 years of Biden's term. Going down. Look at this, guys. Do you approve or disapprove of the job Joe Biden has done as president? Joe Biden, disapprove is 59%. That is more than half. More than half. Natalie Williams said 1.2. I thought it was 1.75. The 1.75 trillion is for the Build Back Better Act. 1.2 is for the infrastructure bill. Thanks for mentioning that, because I just wanted to make sure that people don't get confused over those numbers. But going on, you can see among the findings, nearly half of those surveyed, 46% say Biden has done a worse job as president than they expected, including 16% of those who voted for him. Independents by 7-1, 44% to 6% say he's done worse, not better, than they expected. This is going to be a problem. Nearly 2/3 of Americans, 64%, say they don't want Biden to run a second term in 2024. He's not even wanted. We don't want him, boo. That includes 28% of Democrats. 28% of Democrats don't even want him. Oh my God, you guys. I don't know what to say. Going on, opposition to Trump running for another term in 2024 stands at 58%, including 24% of Republicans. Vice President Kamala Harris' approval rating is 28%. Damn, that's low. Even worse than Biden's. The poll shows that 51% disapprove of the job she's doing. 1 in 5, 21% are undecided. I think it's funny because they say her approval rating is 28%, and then they say even worse than Biden's, as if we couldn't piece the two together. They're funny like that. Americans overwhelmingly support the infrastructure bill Biden is about to sign, but they are split on the more expensive and further reaching Build Back Better Act being debated in Congress. Only 1 in 4 say the bill's provisions would help them and their families. And I told you guys that this would be an issue when they started removing items from that bill, that they were going to lose people. You're removing things from the bill that would really help people's families. Now, it needed to be more money. More money should have been allocated to those items. But the problem still remains that you took away things that the American people greatly, greatly need. You should have never removed dental, eye care, healthcare. None of that should have ever been touched, especially considering the fact that we just went through a pandemic. We're still in the middle of this pandemic. That should have never, ever happened. Never, ever happened. I want to make that very clear. So you are screwing over the American people. And they think that we're not going to see this. They think we're not going to wise up and wake up and realize that, hey, wait a minute. They're starting to take away things from this bill that I need. So what did I say, man? I've said this before. I'll say it again. Joe Biden was the worst choice to be the Democratic nominee. He should have never been in there. He should have never ran for president to begin with. But for the people who felt like he was the more electable option, he would be better than Bernie Sanders, it's just laughable to me. It's absolutely laughable. And this is what we get. What's going on, Ryan 76? Sabby, you know your show is good because I'm from Pittsburgh and I'm watching you over the Steelers Monday Night Football. Oh, thank you so much. Oh, man, not the Steelers. Oh, man. Oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy. I'm a Patriots fan. I hope you still like me. We're not that liked. Anthony said the entire party is the worst, from the fraud squad to Bernie to Biden. What can I say? Eric Thomas said that big money almost already wins. Now, I showed you guys a lot of things tonight. I want to end this segment by showing you something that is laughable. Because Nancy Pelosi, she had like this little word salad speech, which I'm just going to play it. I don't know if she was drunk when she did this or if she was hungover, if she had a buzz, but let me mute my mic and I'm going to pop back.
We're sending stuff over to the Senate. Well, most of the product that we've done is, except now we may have added in the last day or so. And some of what we added is Senate to the bill, like a hearing. Bernie doesn't like hearing. Excuse me, Bernie loves hearing. Manchin doesn't want hearing in the bill and all that stuff. So some is Senate oriented, and then we had the family medical leave. We figured if they're putting things in, then we can put something in.
What the hell?
Manchin doesn't like it. So, so we are getting some bird and privilege. I think most of we're getting privilege scrub, because privilege scrub is deadly to a bill. Bird, it's important. It's you have to take it out, but privilege violation can take you out. So we're again getting that as we go along as well. But when we pass a bill, then they will see it in its aggregate and make some.
Any concerns that any of this is quote messaging, because that they have to
Oh my
take
God,
some
I'm
of those
horrified.
things out regardless, no matter what you send over? You said you weren't
The water's
going
not
to
gonna
send
help,
a messaging bill.
No, we're not sending a messaging bill, but we want to be sure that what we send is not birdable or bird bath or privilege scrub. Those are two
What?
exercises we're getting engaged, bathing exercises we're engaged in, and we're getting good response. There's no bad answer. You know, it is what it is. There's certain objects.
What is that?
Now, I don't know who the women are that shared this. Unfortunately, it says Macaulay Culkin and Daisy. So I don't know. I think I can't see the name of their channel. Oh, shoot balls. Mock and Daisy, I think. Anyway, someone shared their reaction of that video. I'm sorry, but that was hilarious. I was like, what is she talking about? What is this about a bird bath? Like what? I don't know if someone gave Nancy like Patron. I don't know. I don't know what she had to drink before that meeting, but that was pretty bad. That was pretty bad. And possibly Black said Pelosi got into Biden's medicine cabinet. Maybe that's what happened, man. I look, that was, oh, thanks so much, Kevin. Oh, where'd you go? The channel in the bottom right says Mock and Daisy, not familiar with it, but seriously, Pelosi needs to retire immediately. It's just hilarious to me because I'm sorry. It's like, could you imagine the media field day if Bernie had done something like that? Could you imagine the media field day? I don't. Sean said, whatever Nancy was on, please let me know so I don't accidentally take any of it. Preach. Yeah, tell me about it, man. That's like some other stuff going on there. I don't want what she is having. Echo J says, I'm calling the corporate Dems privileged scrubs from now on. Ha ha ha. Oh my God. Yes. Yes. You guys remember that song by TLC, Scrubs? I don't want no scrubs. Oh, you know what I found out over the weekend? And I'm a little embarrassed to admit that I did not know this because I'm a big music buff. But I found out over the weekend, I was talking about the squad, like not holding the line. I started singing that song, you know, the song that goes, hold the line, do, 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 do. Love isn't always on time, do, 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 do. Anyway, for the longest time, I didn't know who sang that song. So bonus points to the first person in the, dang, you beat me, Troy. I was going to say bonus points for the first person in the chat who knows who the band that sings that song. And Troy beat me. He was like, Toto. Toto, the same dudes that brought you Africa. You know the Africa song? I touch the rains down in Africa. I can't do the rest of the song. It's like falsetto and I can't go that high. But yeah, Toto, that was Toto. Little Rock Elevator said Toto hold the line 1978. And for the longest time, I thought they were one-hit wonders with that Africa song. By the way, that's a good song. Even if you're not into like rock music, I gotta say, that's probably one of my favorite, I guess you would say like classic rock songs. I don't know. Is that classic rock? These, you know, genres these days, I can't keep up. We were trying to decide yesterday if Dave Matthews Band is really considered alternative music. Because Dave Matthews Band mixes some of everything, like jazz, like funk, like blues, like, so is Dave Matthews Band really alternative music? Because I think when he came out in the 90s, I thought they included him in that category. But if you really listen to Dave Matthews songs, it sounds more jazzy and bluesy to me than like alternative. When I think of alternative music, I'm thinking about Smashing Pumpkins, Alanis Morissette, Red Hot Chili Peppers. A lot of those people are gone, man. A lot of those people are gone. Alternative music came and went. One thing that was kind of cool about the 90s is that every style of music had its chance to shine. Everyone. There was even a portion at one point where ska was big, because No Doubt kind of started off as like ska, and then Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. Swing was popular at one point in the 90s. There was that, I forget the name of the band, but they sang that song, Zoot Suit Riot. Hip hop, rock, alternative. No matter the style of music, heavy metal style of music in the 90s, every style of music had its moment. And I feel like we don't really see that now. Like now, I don't know. Like, who do people listen to today? Who is like a new artist that I should listen to? Because I still listen to stuff from the 90s, maybe early 2000s, some 80s. Who should I listen to, you guys? I don't know. Yeah, 90s grunge is great too. Yeah, exactly. Like all that stuff just went away. And I never would have thought. There was another one too. They sing that song, Black Hole Sun. What's the name of the group? I think the lead singer was Chris Cornell. Somebody help me out here. Why can't I remember the name of that band? I feel bad about that one. I should really know that one. It'll come to me. Echo J said in 80s stations. Yeah, 80s too. 80s music. I'm really mad. It is really bothering me. I can't. Soundgarden. Yes. Soundgarden. That was the band. They had this trippy music video called Black Hole Sun. And I remember seeing that video and I was like, what is this? It just is trippy as hell. Like people are like mowing the lawn and, you know, playing with Barbies and stuff. And then they get these giant smiles across their faces that the smiles go up like, woo, like way up here. It's like freaky. I was like, what is this video? And so at that point, I don't think I was really into like rock music, but I remember turning on MTV and that video came on and I was like, what is this? And so I ended up listening to the song because of the music video. Back when MTV still played music videos. They went to like reality TV. They really like went there. Really went there. But who should I listen to, you guys? I don't know a lot of new music. Like my sister, I have a little sister, so she's younger than me. She's always mentioning like these artists, and I'm like, I don't know who Little Woozy, Big Boozy, like all these names that she tells me about. I'm like, I don't know who these people are. I do know BTS, Aspen Fallen, but I only know of them because of my sister. Because my sister is into K-pop. So she introduced me to that whole thing. And I was telling myself, I am not going to trade my love for the boy bands that I grew up with for these new boy bands. And then I saw a BTS video, and I'm not going to lie. I was dancing. I was like, what is this? Yeah, K-pop is taking on a whole other level. Can't believe how big K-pop is now. Eric Thomas says, my son says Doja Cat. I think I know one song by her. Can't remember the name of it though. I don't know. Aspen Fallen said BTS is my age. Oh, damn. Dang. Okay. See, I told you guys, when it comes to new music, I just feel like, because a lot of the people that I grew up with musically, they still make music. If you think about it. Some of them died though. Oh yeah, damn. Michael Jackson, if you think about it, Michael Jackson spanned across different decades. So like I grew up with Michael Jackson. My sister grew up with Michael Jackson. My parents grew up with Michael Jackson. Not literally, we didn't know the dude, but I'm just saying, my parents grew up with Michael Jackson. Yeah. So Michael Jackson spanned across decades. Madonna spanned across decades. Like these people are still around. Red Hot Chili Peppers still around. You know what really like hurt me when it went away though? It's just not, it's still around, but it's not popular like it used to be. And that's R&B. I remember in the 90s, R&B groups were like the thing. TLC, Boyz II Men, SWV. There were so many of them. And they were good. Like R&B was really, really good in the 90s. I don't know if it's as good today. I really miss like the girl groups. In Vogue. I like that stuff, man. That's like if you watch like, oh, Robert Escobar show says, what are you talking about? Sorry, I went into like music. I already did news, Robert. I started talking about music for some reason. I can't remember why. But my Spotify list is like all old music. I don't think I have anything really new on there per se. But yeah, Gamer for Life says I like R&B. Yeah, like I remember like, guys, you don't understand, like when TLC came out, like that was like a big deal. That was a big deal. I saw like, you know, girls, I think they were like 19, 20 at the time, wearing like baggy clothes. They had condoms like on their clothes. Like back then, that was a big deal. And I saw these women and they were singing, they were dancing, and they were just so unapologetic. And they were just so bold. And they were not afraid to like talk about sexuality. They were not afraid to talk about what they wanted, like from men sexually. And that just like opened me up to a whole new world. I didn't see that kind of stuff from someone that close to my age, I would say. I saw that with Madonna, but Madonna was a lot older than me at that point. So it was just like a whole different thing, a lot of female empowerment. That's what it was. There was a lot of female empowerment. Same thing with the Spice Girls. A lot of female empowerment. And I have ranted on. It is time for me to go, ladies and gentlemen. I am sorry that I have flooded your ears with a whole discussion about music. That was not on the list of topics for tonight, but sometimes I go into that direction. Anyhow, guys, do want to shout out, and I will show a promo video for this on my channel later on this week. We are having the General Strike Summit on Fred Hampton Leftist Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It is a 3-day event. We have awesome guests lined up. I'm going to show that promo vid. I should be able to show that Wednesday on my show, and then you'll be able to see all the guests. It's going to be great. You're going to learn about worker co-ops, unions, activism. You're going to hear from activists. You're going to hear from people who have done worker co-ops. You're going to hear from people that know what it's like to work in a union, people who have been on the ground, people who are fighting for some of the same things that we're fighting for, but they've been doing it a lot longer. You're going to hear more about mutual aid. You're going to hear from Rome, hearing about his tour for the poor. So don't miss it. From 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's going to be the thing. So if you have no plans this weekend, come check us out. I'll show that promo Wednesday night. Other than that, I am going to get going, and I hope everyone has a great night. Have a great night. Keep up the fight.